What's going on YouTube? TeamSC back online here with another 3v3 gamecast for you this evening. Now since patch 3.8 has released, I have been playing StarCraft non-stop. It has re-inspired the dream with me and I've been having a lot of fun trying out all these different strategies and using all the different units. So I figured I'd cast a couple games and try to show you guys a couple of the new strats and things we've been trying out. So let's go ahead and introduce our players. We do have none other than Brain Crusher, aka 2 base Mutalisk, spawning as the red Zerg on Team 1, along with none other than me spawning as the red Terran for Team 1. And last but not least, we have Spec playing today as the random Protoss, spawning as his main race, Protoss, over here all alone by himself. We are up against none other than the blue Protoss Erratic with his two allies, the Evil One, and Tick. I like that name. Nice and easy, rolls off the tongue. So needless to say, we are playing a 3v3 matchup. This map is called New Richmond. How it's set up is you have two allies who are kind of here on the same side of the map together. Do have a small ramp that goes down to two fairly easy to secure bases since you do have two allies here. Branching out a little bit, you do have third bases on the more open ground and then a high ground gold base with a watchtower here, which is pretty easy to defend. And definitely a lot of benefits if you manage to hold this position with the watchtower vision and the gold-based minerals and whatnot. Fortunately for the third ally, he is kind of by himself. He does have an easy to obtain expansion down below with a fairly big ramp to secure, but if he does manage to live and not get rushed out early in the game, he has access to a third gold base himself, which is pretty safe and tucked in, along with a fourth base leading out over here. So this is kind of an interesting map. I like it because you do have two people who are together. The safer bases have access to two bases and a potential third base each, but the one who's by himself has access to actually four bases, and if he does manage to stay alive with help from his teammates and macro up, you can actually get out some pretty strong amount of army and upgrades and some crazy combos going if you do have that third expansion. So anyways, to start things off, not much going on. Going to go ahead and be getting a reactor on this barracks, throwing down a factory, going to be getting out some quick cyclones most likely, maybe some Hellions. I don't really remember what I went this game. Throwing down another command center, getting some economy going. Meanwhile, Brain Crusher did get another hatchery, does have speed, researching, and a roach warren on the way. Looks like going to be a little bit of early roach ling play for the Brain Crusher. Spec himself working on finishing a wall, got warp gates researching, got a second nexus down. Going to be hopefully walling this off pretty soon. He needs to kind of keep it tight because there is a Zerg on the enemy team, and this SCV actually getting a full scat of spec space, but he does actually bring the probes off the line to get that free kill to kind of deny any scouting information. If we do take a look at Blue Vision's base, they did do a pretty good job scouting. They did scout the Zerg. They didn't see the roach warren though, so they don't know where we're going to get roach, but they do know that the Protoss is walled on the low ground. If we go to our vision, we're actually playing in the dark because we roll like that. Only thing we've seen is an Overlord, which is scouted an Overlord, so we know they have a Zerg, and that's the only thing we really know. So anyways, other Zerg, Tick over here, going to be having a second hatchery, also going for a Roach Warren and also researching speed. So it does look like Roach Ling play for both Zerg players on each side of the map. Does have a decent amount of Zerglings out and actually getting a couple of Roaches, and does look like he's going to be moving out for an early game push, try to get a little bit of damage done. Speed not quite ready yet, does have a little bit of time left to finish, but by the time he gets across the map, he should have speed done. We do have the blue Protoss over here going for two gateways, going to be getting a couple of stalkers, chrono boosting the warp gate. It does look like some early aggression for him, even getting a forge down just to make sure he stays alive, because he is going for some gold base economy, and once he gets this up and running, he will be able to do a lot of damage. Terran player getting some medevacs out on the map, going to be going for some Hellions, got a couple of Marines doing, and researching stim packs. So it does look like bio for the blue Terran, and also a couple of medevacs. Looks like he's going to be going for an early game drop as well, so it does look like we're going to be having some early game harassment going on, but we do have some harassment for ourselves. Have four Hellions out on the map, going to be running around doing a little bit of scouting and going to the enemy base, and actually going to be stumbling across this gold base. Wasn't really expecting to find the early expansion of the gold base, but going to be having to pull out of there. Mothership and Stalkers going to be a little too much for these Hellions to do any damage. Decide not to risk losing them. Could run in, try to get some damage done at the main and kill a couple workers, but at this point in the game we really need to keep all of our troops alive and just make sure we're not vulnerable. Once these Hellions die, we pretty much have no counter to Zerglings, and they're free to kind of just run and destroy my whole base. So my mindset here is keep the Hellions alive just to make sure no Zerglings run and kill all my expansions and get any quick run bys. But we do have Brain Crusher moving down the map, does have a big chunk of roaches, a bunch of speedlings following as well, and he is going to be attacking the blue Protoss, going to be trying to deny him that gold base economy, going to be punishing the third player for getting greedy because he really doesn't have the resources to defend this, especially if two people attack him at the same time. Meanwhile, we do have Blue's Zerg forces still here at the watchtower. I thought he was going to move out, but he's actually just sitting there, and that's not really what you want to be doing as the Zerg. Ideally, if you're going to be building troops, you want to be doing something with them, not just letting them sit there, because that could be more drones and more economy. But we do have roaches going to town, destroying the pylon. Cannon does go down, a couple stalkers here to defend, but doesn't look like they're going to be able to clean this up. But we do have a main drop here in Spec's base. Zerg, Terran going to be going in, dropping a Cyclone and a Marauder, going to be sniping out that Photon Cannon. There is one mothership here and a Photon Overcharge, but this composition does actually take down buildings fairly well, because they do have a Marauder and a Cyclone here to dish out the damage. And meanwhile, we still have Zerglings here trying to get some snipes on some probes. Blue's still trying to defend his gold base, but it does look like this gold base is going to go down. He only has a handful of stalkers, but not too much else going for him. But this Terran is doing massive amounts of damage. That Nexus is almost dead. He's actually deciding not to snipe out the Nexus and go down and see if he can get some more damage. Going ahead and bringing all of my units here. Going to be throwing down, destroying that pylon to try to get in there and help my ally. And going to be getting the lock onto the medevac, and do manage to snipe out the medevac that had the troops in it. So keeping Spec alive, coming back to help out my ally. He did survive with this Nexus and still has a good chunk of his workers, so he is going to be needing to get that base saturated again and try to re-macro up. Going to be going back out on the map to see if we can do any damage. Meanwhile, Brain Crusher over here trying to push up the ramp and get a little damage done. Did manage to snipe out a pylon and unpower these gateways temporarily. But all in all, not too much damage. Did manage to get a pick on the gold base. We do have a little action here. Liberator actually coming in, doing a little bit of damage here against Brain Crusher himself. I don't think he lost too many drones. He still has a handful of them here. Did bring those Cyclones back in time to get a lock on and deal with that. Roaches here going to be going down the map again, trying to still see if they can get a little bit more damage, but deciding to go ahead and go back home, considering that Blue is still on one base and we have managed to get a couple of expansions secured. We are doing considerably well, but we do see this drop coming out on the map, so we are going to be ready for it. Going to be moving the troops into position, trying to get a snipe on that medevac. Does look like he's going to be trying to drop in our main base. Trying to go over here, but the medevac does actually outspace me, but I do know it's coming, so bring back the Hellion Cyclone army, which is very mobile, to get it into position to deal with this drop. It does look like he is not going to be dropping just yet. He is going in now, trying to see what he can get done, but we do have the units here in time, so this drop should not be doing anything. Actually deciding to pull back, definitely a good play by him, not overcommitting. We were this close to getting a mass lock on that and just taking out that medevac. And whilst we do have Spec going down, taking a third base for himself as well, going to be taking up to Stargate units. Do have the Zerg taking his third forward gold base, and Terran is on his second base as well, making more barracks consistently, staying with the bio play. Got even a third command center, should be getting his third expansion here soon. Blue Protoss going to be taking his safer base this time around, and just working on getting it into position. Hellion Cyclone's going to be moving across the map, going to be seeing if we can get a little damage done and harass the enemy just a little bit over here. Going to be pushing out. Don't have armor yet, so we can't morph these to Hellbats. We do need to be careful. They're not going to be the best at tanking the front line. And actually, a little blunder on me, going a little bit too far, losing a couple Hellions there, getting eaten up by the Immortals and Stalkers. Do need to get that armory research done so we can get the Hellbats to tank for the Cyclones so they can dish out the damage. Meanwhile, we do have a little push over here. It does look like Medevac's going to be going in for a drop. Pushing in across the map over here. Did get a sight from that with the Overlord, so we should be able to respond in time, but actually didn't manage to actually see it. Actually sneaking by, only nothing here but just one Cyclone and a couple Spore Callers and Queens. Going to be dropping the Cyclones, Marines, and Marauders here in the main base of Brain Crusher, and just going to be going to town, taking out a couple drones, taking out a couple Queens, and nothing coming back yet to defend this. Hydralisk on the way. Upgrade's not quite done yet. Big fight here in the middle of the map. Protoss moving across. A bunch of Cyclones going to town, but there are a lot of Immortals here. They are doing pretty good job at dealing with this mech army, and even Zerg moving out across the map too. Roaches coming back, could be trying to deal with this drop, but there are a couple Cyclones here, and these Cyclones for the Evil One are actually doing a considerable amount of damage, tearing up the Roaches, but Void Rays are going to be coming in for Spec to help deal with this. Meanwhile, we do have the Blue Zerg moving across the map, going to be taking out Brain Crusher's Hatchery, trying to come here, trying to do a little damage and help stall this, but not quite enough armor here. Did lose a big chunk of it to the Protoss Immortal Force that just moved across the map. Void Rays here going to be doing damage, not much here that can shoot up air. There are Ravagers who can shoot off their corrosive bile, but does take just poor attention on the Sky Toss part to get hit by those. Does look like we are going to be pushing this army back, going to be chasing it down. Hellions are able to actually catch up with the Ravagers. We're just going to be trying to pick off what we can, get as much free damage done as possible, and just keep pushing across the map. Pushing even further and further. Blue Flame done for these Hellions. Cyclones moving in. Don't have any upgrades yet on these. Void Rays have +1 attack. These Roaches and Ravagers are still at 0-0 and going to be pushing in. Overcommitting just a little bit, taking a couple corrosive bile hits, going to be having to fall back. Link's going to be going to the front lines, not enough Hellions here to cover these Cyclones from the Zerglings, and we are going to be having to move back. Meanwhile, enemy team does have their own Cyclones moving across the map, going to be picking off a bunch of my Cyclones and need to get out of there and minimize losses as much as possible because we only have about 3 Cyclones left. Meanwhile, we do have a counter push over here. Protoss moving in with the Stalkers and Immortals. Siege tanks coming here, but not quite yet in position. Going to be getting the siege up, but will it be in time? They are doing a good amount of damage at dealing with these Stalkers, but we do have a bunch of Immortals here. Tongue twist, guys, sorry. A couple Hydralisks coming in here. Blue actually backing out a little bit. He actually has this fight one. Yeah, he is going to be pushing in, going to be going for the command center. Need to lift up the SCVs and get everything out of there, and going to be having to retreat temporarily. Meanwhile, throwing down more factories and do need to macro up. We did actually lose our army throughout all those engagements, so right now we are a little bit behind, and if they continue pushing, we are not going to be able to stop them or deal with them quite yet. Do need to stall a little bit and try to re-macro up. Meanwhile, he is taking a gold base behind this, but we do have the vast Void Ray force moving out. Respect, going to be sniping the gold base of the Zerg. One of the Void Rays getting fungal growth, the other 3 getting fungal growth, but Blue missing his key timing to keep the fungals spammed on the Void Ray force. So Spec finally getting back in this game. Does look like he's trying to actually take the base of the Sky Toss, which is not really a smart play by Tick. So this base is going to be going down. Terran forces moving across, but getting caught on move command, and everything is just kind of not really where it needs to be. Everything's streamlining in, but the Zerg force is here. Still not a lot of it that hits air, though. They do have a couple of Infestors, but we'll see if they do any good damage. A couple of Zerglings from Brain Crusher can be pushing in to try to help defend this as well. And these Void Rays are just going to town. I mean, there's a lot of army here, but nothing really to deal with the Void Rays. Void Rays doing a lot of damage, a lot of kills on these Void Rays. Going to be going in a little further. Corrosive Bile is going down and actually getting a couple of hits, picking up a couple of Void Rays. Spec needs to keep moving and microing these Void Rays. He's going to keep losing more. And actually, a couple more Void Rays going down. Needs to try to spread these out a little bit because a lot of these Void Rays are low. Nothing actually shooting up, but doing a lot of damage trying to just micro and pick out these Void Rays. Void Rays going to be pushing in, scaring his army back. Still a couple of Ravagers here, still a couple of Corrosive Biles to go around. But Tick overcommitting here, doesn't need to be going in. He needs to try to keep this army alive. Nothing hit air. He needs to save it, live to fight another day, but he decides to just go for it. Going to be running everything in and trying to attack the Protoss base. Meanwhile, Spec going to be bringing back his Stalkers to help deal with all of this. It does realize that Hatchery's here, and that Hatchery actually did finish, which is pretty crazy. Bringing everything back. Mothership Core even coming in the fight, going to be throwing down some Photon Overcharge, and this Zerg force is going to be getting eaten up. Forced to retreat home, but we do have Terran bringing more across the map. Going to be trying to get in there, throwing some lock-ons down on the Void Rays, trying to get a little damage done. But the lock-on does not do nearly as much damage as it used to, especially to big Sky-tossed units as well. But we do have a big fight here. It does look like the Immortal Force tried to push in again, but this time we were ready. We have a bunch of tanks and Hellbats and even a couple Ravens in the mix. Did switch up the composition a little bit to get a bunch of Hellbats to buffer against those Immortals, and a few Ravens to support from the sky as well. We're going to be taking this moment to move across the map. Spec still has a couple of Void Rays here, still going to be fighting. Blue Tick is definitely interested in trying to take the Sky Toss out of the game, but he needs to change up his composition because the way things are going, there's just not enough anti-air here. The Evil One should be building more Marines instead of these Marauders, and Tech needs to really switch it up and get some Hydralisks in play, or else they're going to just lose this game. But we do have big mech force moving in here, a bunch of Hellbats, a bunch of Siege Tanks. This is scary for anybody to deal with unless you have a bunch of air units. Even throwing down point defense drone, doing a good job blocking the Stalkers and the Mothership Core fire. Going to be splitting up these tanks now, just kind of island hopping forward. You never want to have your tanks clumped up too much together because then they all get sniped fairly quick. So we are going to be spreading them out and moving in slowly. Continuing the push. Hellbat's doing a lot of damage on the front line. This mech has 1-1 upgrades now, and we even had a couple Thors joining the mix. Going to be able to take out that mothership, and this gold base is going to go down. Going to be inching up the Siege Tank Hellbat lineup forward a little bit more. Meanwhile, we do have a counter push here. Blue Terran going to be moving in, trying to get a snipe on this gold base, and he's been doing a lot of work. Hasn't had a lot of army per se, but he's been proactive with the little bit he has, trying to get what damage done, just moving in more and more. But we do have this Thor going to be coming back to try to help defend this, along with some Speedlings from Brain Crusher. Meanwhile, Void Ray Force has decided they are done being attacked, going to be moving across the map, trying to get a snipe on this gold base and take Blue out of the game. They are running low on econ. This mech force is going to be moving in, just doing more and more damage. Do have some Liberation from the Evil One coming here, trying to get a Lyok on, but we do have a couple Thors Going to be trying to focus down these Liberators, but do need to unsiege and get out of position. Actually losing both Thors to that Liberator fire, as you know they do massive ground damage. But going to be using the Raven, going to be throwing down that auto turret, and as you can see, that auto turret has pretty good damage per second, guys. It does 24 damage per shot, and its attack rate is pretty absurd, actually. So they actually do good at swinging the battles in your favor, especially if you're running a little bit behind. But tank's going to be moving in. Not even going to be bothering to siege, just going to keep them mobile to make sure that Liberator doesn't get on top of them. Void Rays, Zerglings going into the main base of the Zerg, and this Void Ray force also moving across the map. Going to be sniping the last mining base of Terran. There are a couple missile turrets here, but not nearly enough to deal with this mass amount of Void Rays, and this planetary fortress is going to evaporate. Workers die in Void Raids, destroying everything. Mech army here pushing in. Zerglings in the main base of the Zerg, and it looks pretty grim for the enemy team. If I dare say, it looks like we'll see a GG here momentarily. Hellbat's going to be moving in, tanks moving in. And there's a Dark Shrine here, but doesn't look like he has the economy to even warp in any Dark Templars, and we do have that Raven. So, looks like going to be GG, going to just be finishing up this bases, guys. Let me know what you think. Since patch 3.8 has come out, I've been having a lot of fun playing with all these new strats. Let me know how you've been doing, how your games have been going. Anyways, guys, we'll finish up this fight, but they do leave the game now, so GG, till next time. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment if you got something to say, and please subscribe to help support the Team Game StarCraft community. Till next time.